Hello and welcome to the 8th and last part of creating a sports graphic with Boris Continuum. My name is Ben Brownlee with Boris Effects, and in this last section we are going to be taking a look at how to create an informational strap. So, this is actually the meat that goes on top of the potatoes that we've been creating up till now. Everything we've done up to this point is really just about making a fancy background for the useful information that we're going to be presenting here. So let's get into Title Studio and check out a few tricks we haven't seen yet. Well, I've done a quick pre-render from what we had in part 7 so that we've got something nice and fast that we can build on top of. So all that's remaining for us to do is to create the graphic strap, so the information strap that's going to be on top of this animation. And I'm going to create a new solid, and I will call this one graphic strap. There we go, and let's bring in Title Studio again. There we are. All right. And just like in the first part here, if we have a look at the effects browser, then there are actually quite a lot of good templates for us to start working with, to sort of take a look and see what we can do with this here. But again, just like we did right at the very beginning, I'm not going to use any of the templates right now. We're going to build something up from scratch. So just cancel out of that, and let's come into the UI. So launch UI, and let's get rid of the Boris effects that's in there. So the first thing we're going to do is create this strap that goes over the top, the actual plinth that we are working on. And I'm just going to come and use a spline primitive. So spline primitives are just really powerful ways of just creating up simple and straightforward shapes. I'll turn my material styles off for a second. I don't need that library there. And if I come into the material texture there, we can choose what sort of primitive that we're working on. We've got, oh, that's a lovely little heart. That's nice. I like that. We've got grids as well, if we want to use grids, but of course grids aren't going to work with the texture that we've got at the moment. So let's just bring this in. Let's have it going all the way over. So the right's going to be at 100% there, and the bottom is 70. So we've got, just basically a third there. In fact, we can do this even as a nice even third. So top, no, let's have it slightly bigger than a third. And if we come along into fill, we've got the fill turned on, and we can give it a fill color. We can either choose a regular color or a gradient. Let's choose gradient. Let's come over here, choose a blue color. Come over to the other stop. Choose a slightly different blue color, or exactly the same blue color. I don't know. There we go. Let's make this slightly lighter. There we are. That should be okay. Hit OK on that. Yep, nothing, too crazy about that at all. And I can also change the opacity down here as well. So maybe we'll take this down to 75%. So a little bit of opacity happening so we can see a bit more of what's going on in the background. All right, so let's bring in our next element, which is going to be another EPS file. Here's one that I've made earlier. So it's just a little separator. All it is a line, a few dots. My favorite little wingdings thing that we used on the 3D model, and then same on the other side. So I'm just going to spin this around. 90 degrees, please. Thank you very much. I am going to shrink this down, but only in the X. And how's that looking? Yeah, that's fine. That's in the middle. It's looking like a separator. I like the squishedness. That's part of what I wanted. If we didn't want the squishness, let's find our separator again. Yeah, if we didn't want the squishness, let's take the scale back. If we did the master scale down to 30, you can see we keep in our little dots and our points and make those still circular, but we would have to do something about the width of the line. We could bring it around about there, and then come into my shader texture, and I could crop that if I wanted to. That's not the left and right. That's not, sorry, top and bottom, is it? It's not left and right, it's top and bottom. Could do that if you wanted to, and that would be fine. But I actually quite like the squishness that we had. It sort of made it a little bit more graphic for me. Let's come back in here, undo that a few times. Where were we? We were scale X, and that was 30. Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So we've got a rectangle, which is our plinth. Let's call this plinth. We've got the separator EPS, which is actually obviously our separator. Let's add in a bit more detail. I'm going to add in a flag over here. So image file. I'm into textures. Yes, Italy flag. And we'll scale that down a little bit. We'll move that into place. Yeah, stick that over there. Cool. Which now means I can move my separator over here a little bit, so we've got a bit more space for the name. We'll call this one flag. And let's add some flat text. So we can do either just plain flat text, which can be unaffected by any of the lighting elements that we have in the scene. Or alternatively, let's just delete that. I can come in and I can have flat text with 3D lights. So we can see already that the text itself is being affected by the lighting within the scene. Yeah, I kind of like that. We're going to keep that there. So when it comes to text, we have our text controls up in the top left, and a lot of these controls are going to feel very familiar to you. We can change what the font is going to be just by using the up and down arrows here, or by looking at our big list of fonts that we have available to us. What sort of font do we want? I want quite a heavy font. Yeah, can use the semi-bold. Yep. And we can change the font size over here. And I'm going to type in a name, knowing my love of Italian football, or my love of Googling who the current Italian football captain actually is at this moment. I will have this name right here. Now, the nice thing about the text is I can also select an area of the text, and I can make it bigger. So we have the surname taking in, a lot more space. I might just, instead of having that 72, that's a 65. Select all of that, and we'll change the leading up so that fits in a bit better. Yeah, cool. Let's bring that into here and bring that into there. So now we've got a bit of space to work with. Okay, so far, so good. It's not doing a lot, but we have roughed out where we want everything to be. Okay, the first thing I want to do is add a little bit of animation to the flag. So let's come over to our flag here, and I'm going to come up to our shaders. Because we're working in a 2D composite, we actually do have access to all of these ones as well now. So we can do like a light raise. Let's come into our controls. Look at that, I've got light raise that can change right up in the viewer there. Very nice and very fast, because it's all coming off the shader here. So it's just a nice image processor there. I've got things like scan lines, but I don't want to do any of that. I want to actually just give it a little bit of movement, a little bit of motion. And guess what I'm going to do? Yeah, I'm going to use our old friend, Mesh Chaos. And I'm going to take the chaos, really quite far down. I want a little bit of chaos going on. I don't even have to do anything else with it. We've got the animation speed, which is going quite fast, which is probably not what we want either. But I'm going to actually, let's keep this here because I want to show you something else. Let's take the chaos amount high, because I just want to show you what happens when we move the center point. Because to get a bit more of a flag type of look, I'm going to move it so that our center point, you can see that is just over to the left. It's actually -1. And then I'll take my chaos amount down again. And we should get a bit of a look that has the flag kind of flapping a little bit. I mean, it's not perfect, but we do have a bit of flapping. Let's expand this out a little bit more so you can see that a bit better. So now we can adjust the animation speed. The animation speed is far too fast. We just want a little bit of breeze. We don't want, you know, gale force winds. There we go. Something around about there. Should be happy with that. But now we've given the flag a bit of animation. It still looks like a really sort of flat flag. I don't want to go in and texture it up and, you know, have to relight it and do anything kind of complicated with it. I just want to have it so it's got a little bit of what feels like it's got a little bit of depth to it. I don't even need to have that sort of realistic too much. So this is just a Photoshop file. So what we're going to do, well, let's head into Photoshop. And here is our flag. Here is another nice little fast trick. I'm going to come in and create a new layer. I'm going to render up some clouds. Lovely, beautiful. I'm going to turn the blend mode on my clouds to overlay so we can see this a bit better. I am going to transform it. So edit, transform scale, lock those scales together and just zoom that up a little bit. Cool, and that's happy with that. And come into blur, bit of Gaussian blur. I just want to blur this up enough so that this kind of fades out a little bit, but we can still see there's a little bit of structure to it. Oh, we're around about 26, that's fine. Take the opacity down on that. So before, sorry, there we go. Before, after. It's a little thing. Might be a bit too subtle, but we'll see how it works. I'm just going to save that. Save and come back into Title Studio. Here we are. Nothing has changed in Title Studio until I go File, Reload Files. And then we've got our flag. Yeah, and I suspected that might be just a little bit too heavy still, which means I'll go back into Photoshop, take the opacity down to around about 55%, save that one more time, back into Title Studio, reload those files. That's looking better. There we go. So it sort of feels like it's got a little bit of depth to it now. Nothing too much, and it's, you know, fast little effect. Another little fast little thing we can do is that at the layer control level, if we don't want this to be affected by lights and shadows there, we can actually just add a quick drop shadow directly onto the layer itself. You want to be a bit careful with this if you've got 3D objects, because these drop shadows will layer. You can actually end up having drop shadows on top of drop shadows. There we go, nothing too. Well, let's bring the opacity up so we can actually see it and take the distance down. Everyone's got their own particular favorite way of doing drop shadows. I'm just going to bring my angle down to 70%. So I'm going to remember these settings here and apply a similar thing to my separator. Maybe make the distance smaller on this. Actually remember to turn the drop shadow on. And there we go. And bring the angle to 70 as well. I'll just do a quick drop shadow on the text, just to improve legibility. 70 on there. Good stuff. All right. Move this into place. Yeah, we can move our lights now on the scene. And you can see how that is affecting all of our elements. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. Take the ambient intensity down. So it's just lit by the one light. Everything's still very static though. Everything's still static, and I'm not a big fan of that. I want stuff kind of coming in, assaulting my eyes all the time. I never want a moment's peace. So I'm going to come into my text now. We'll animate this in. And we can do this in a number of different ways. We could come into the shape position and animate the shape in as we've done previously. But if I open up my shape, come back into the material texture, you can see I've got a lot more different effects available to me, or a lot more different options available to me. Right, in here I've got, letter spins, I've got letter tumbles. I can animate in tracking, I can animate in leading, I can animate in the baseline. But I also have a type on tab. So I can automatically animate this, or animate multiple properties just with a single keyframe. So I'm going to do this really quickly. I'm just going to animate this or apply this to the word. I'm going to have quite a fast reveal time. Let's take that reveal time to about 50. And I'm going to leave all of these other ones here for the second. So I'm going to shift these up or have them starting so stuff is moving up. So let's bring that around about there-ish. So we get the type on to 51%, so we can actually, or 52% then, fine. So we can see where this is going to be animating in from. So this is how many pixels up it's going to start. Just want to bring this down just a little bit. Bring it in from there. There we go. I can even have it fading in from nothing as well. So it comes in and bumps on like that. I don't want fade in this case. I'm just going to have it popping in from nowhere. I've also got things for acceleration. So it's not just going to land in a linear fashion. I can add some acceleration in. I can also add a bit of overshoot in as well. Let's add 5 of overshoot. So what this is going to do is it's going to bump it in or take it a little bit too far and then bump that into place afterwards. So let's see what this is going to do. So let's take this to linear. Probably don't want the keyframe there, Ben. Let's take that to around about 1 second and then just move the keyframe over here. And how long do I want this to type in on? Maybe another second or so. Make sure I have no keyframe selected. Do my ease there. Come to my first keyframe, set that to 0. Play that back. Actually, let's turn that to draft mode so we can play it back even faster. And instead of playing back the whole thing, I'm just going to focus on my timeline, just on that one little area. It's probably dropping in from a little bit too high. So let's take our shift down to about 80. And we probably want a little bit more overshoot on that. So I'm going to take that to 15. And let's play that back. Yep, I'm liking that. I can actually even hear the animation as it comes in. Dung. Dung. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so we've got that bit working for us. Let's come now and just see how we can animate this in as well, like the whole scene. You know, I could in fact just animate everything as a container. That would work. One more time, let's have a look and see what we have here. We're working in 2D, so I can use my wipe curtain. And take a look at this. I've got a curtain. Animate it on with my offset. What if I want to work, animate it on the other way? Well, let's change the edge bias and take the edge bias to -5. And there we go. We can now offset that and bring that in there. Now, the nice thing is we've also got noise that we can apply to it. So if you've worked with any of the Continuum transitions, you'll know that there's these controls that can add to influence. You can add noise or you can add influence based on another layer. This works in the same sort of way. So we can kind of add a little bit of interest into the wipe. So it's not just a plain wipe. I'm liking that. Cool. So let's animate this in. So we'll do ease in, ease out. Get us to round about, well, where does there we go. So just before the text comes in. And let's change the offset here. Bring us in there. Might be too slow, so let's bring that over around about ½ second. Let's play that back, see what we get. Oh, that goes really quickly. Maybe this one, instead of having ease in, ease out, I'm just going to have this to decelerate and this one set to linear. And maybe take a little bit more time with it. Because we've got this set to decelerate, we should have a little bit of time to see the plinth before the text comes in. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. All right, I'll buy that. I'm also going to animate stuff in as well. Actually, we'll animate the container position so that everything's going to move in. Let's have this set to decelerate. I'm going to push this a little bit back, not too far back. So it comes in, and then as it moves along, let's have it moving a bit forward to us as well. Not too much again. We don't need to distract too much. Just need to have that kind of feel of movement forward, you know, of always moving forward, so my eye is constantly drawn to what's happening. All right. Cool. That should be good enough. We can sort of, you know, we can come in and we can add more stuff to it. We've even got, like, if I come to my shaders over here, if you want to do it, we've even got like, where are you? We've got a light sweep. Help if I put myself to my arrow tool then. There we go. Yeah, we've got the light sweep that we can bring over, which is all nicely accelerated. And we can even add in smoke to it, and we can do, you know, all sorts of stuff here. But I don't really want a light sweep right at this moment. I'm happy with how things are. So the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I come into the render and I enable my motion blur here, and then hit apply and come back into my host, which is After Effects. Let's do a quick RAM preview, see what we get. And one quick RAM preview later, this is where we land. Something that's looking pretty respectable, I think. You know, obviously with all these things, there are a few little bits and bobs that I'd like to come in and maybe tweak up a little bit more, but I think we're in a pretty good place. So in this part, we've taken a step away from the 3D aspects of Title Studio and looked at the sort of core 2D text generation capabilities it has. Now, once we've got this in place, we can very quickly and easily save this out so that other people can use it and update it in no time at all. So let's see how that's going to work. If I come in now, go back into my Title Studio, I can save out either just the small project file, or I can save out a consolidated project, which takes the project file and all of the media files that are associated with it and places it in a single folder. So if I come into my Title Studio folder that I've created here, and I'm just going to call this one Ben Info Strap. Save that out, very nice and quick, and I bring the folder open. You see it saved out the project file, the Photoshop file, and the EPS file that we used for the separator. Now the nice thing about this is that I can use that file in other hosts as well. And here I am in Premiere with my background rendered out. I've got a black video over the top here. Let's come into my effects, go Title Studio or Title Stew, and let's just open up Title Studio in here. So I'm going to come into Setup. That's what you have to do in Premiere. I'm going to load up or open up that project. So where were we? Title Studio, Ben Info Strap. Here we go. Wait a couple of seconds while it loads everything in, and there is my text and titles all waiting for me to take center stage. And I just have to adjust that stuff up in there, hit apply, and lo and behold, I am back in Premiere and ready to render out my text file here. In Resolve, we can still do this as well. We just have to do things a little bit differently. If I apply the Title Studio effect over on top of my clip, come into Launch UI window, let's open up that same project. Ben Info Strap, there we go. And all I'm going to do here is add in another layer, and it's going to be my video 1 layer. So this just adds in the video track that we placed the clip on top of. So if I bring my video 1 down the bottom here, we've now composited our clip in here, but we can still do everything else that we were doing previously. Hit apply on that. Lo and behold, all rendered up, looking nice. And this is where I'm going to leave you for this particular project. I hope you have enjoyed this series. If you've just been dipping in and out of it for some reason, I heartily recommend you start back at part 1 and then work your way through again. In fact, if this is your first time round, I actually heartily recommend you work back at part 1 again, because over the last 8 parts, we've actually been through a lot of stuff, and some stuff is going to be slightly more straightforward than other bits. But I really hope that you've learned something, and you're going to want to go out and explore some of the opportunities that Title Studio gives you, and how that works together with the other filters inside Boris Continuum. But for now, my name is Ben Brownlee with Boris Effects, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Thanks for now. Thanks for watching, and be sure to go to borisfx.com to download a free trial of Boris Continuum so you can try this out yourselves. If you want to see more of this type of tutorial, or you have some ideas of your own, be sure to leave a comment below. Also, subscribe to the Boris YouTube channel to stay up to date with the latest information and training materials on all the Boris Effects products.